Hello and welcome to 101 with me, your host, Mark Bichachi. Now, this week, we're talking about a topic that a musician sang about, and he said, blame it on the alcohol. Well, that's not alcohol, but you get my point. My point here being that the country is currently embroiled in a fight against illicit brews, saying that young people are spending way too much time drinking, especially in the rural areas. Now, we know and we've seen clips like this one here, the women complaining that their men can't do hoo-ha with hee-hee. That's their complaint, not me. But seriously, there is an issue. Alcoholism in this country is an issue, but it's an issue across Africa. The drunkest country in Africa, by the way, is Uganda, and it drinks the most amount of alcohol. And what is famous in the villages is banana gin, alcohol made out of bananas. Now, there's a lot to be said about the creation of alcohol in Africa. And personally, I have a bit of beef with this. I'll tell you what it is. When you drink whiskey, you're taking a white man's changa. That's what it is. When you take beer, you're taking another white man's busa. Why is it that the African's busa is illegal and it is illicit, but when I buy the white man's beer, it is not? That is an issue that me as an industrialist, as someone who believes in the industrial complex that Africa should have, I am totally against the fight against the production of locally brewed African beverages. I think we need to support more African. I would love to see busa being sold in the United States just the same way Mexican tequila is what you like to order with a pinch of salt and lemon. You didn't think I know that? Yes, I do. I know about what you order. But the thing is, that's not what this is about. I wish it was. I wish I could go into the details of how champagne is really nothing special. It's carbonated wine. You put carbon dioxide in wine, it's champagne. But the French have been so proud about it, so proud about their local brew, that they have named it after it is made from. It is like my grandmother's busa being called a Huisero village. Okay, sorry, I lie. My grandmother was not from Huisero, she was from Bokoli. So imagine being sold Bokoli beer and it being the best beer you can find anywhere in the world. I would love to see that. I would love to see Muratina, from Rigiji's backyard being sold internationally. That will be a proud moment to see local brews being sold internationally, just the same way we take tequila with so much pride, or we take champagne and we pay 30,000 shillings for a bottle and we are proud about it. I pray one day that we will take Murats with the same pride. Well, that's not what this show is about. This show is about alcoholism, it's about bang, and it's about our young people. Now, just today, I woke up and I saw a young person posting on their status, and they said they have to take their morning blunt. And I thought to myself, has weed become like coffee? Do you take it in the morning? Is it part of your breakfast routine? Does it give you vitamins? What is going on? Why is it that our young people are slowly being swallowed up by a drug culture that is normalized? And that's my beef. It is normal. You talk about sniffing lines of coke the same way we used to talk about playing kalongolongo. There is something happening in our country that we are not observing. Now, listen, the highest consumers of drugs are Western countries, the United States, Europe, where people take a whole lot of drugs. Now, they take a whole lot of drugs in an environment that is different from ours. They have social security, they have resources, they have a higher GDP per capita, they are wealthy people. However, we take drugs and alcohol in a situation where we are poorer than them. Now, those circumstances are different. A drunk man in the wealthy suburbs of Nairobi is carried to his car, and the watchman salutes him and makes sure and tells him, "Boss, get home safe." A poor man who drinks in the ghettos of Nairobi will find lodging in a tunnel that is a storm drain, will put his head on a stone, pee on himself, and we will laugh at him in the morning. There is a difference between being rich drunk and being broke drunk and being broke drunk. Or broke, that's a new one. I had that one. It's when you look rich but you're that poor, aka socialite. Anyway, I segue. Forgive me. So whether you're broke or broke, the idea of being high constantly has a bigger, more adverse effect on you than when you are wealthy. For example, when you take all your money and drink alcohol, what is left for food? Many times, people who drink in the villages have 10, 20 shillings when they wake up in the morning, most likely from having stolen a bunch of coffee or Mira or whatever it is and sold it, and they have 20, 30 shillings. And they literally have to make the choice between a cup of changa and food. And guess what? 10 times out of 10, changa wins. And the amount of people who are dying because they cannot afford the diet equivalent to their drinking is high. So there's a problem. There's a problem also when someone is taking heroin, addicted as they are, and they need to survive. What is interesting, and I saw a documentary about this, when you see people who we call mad in Nairobi, collecting papers and things like that, most of the time it is not insanity, but rather it is drug dependency, specifically the drug heroin. Why? Because heroin has this harrowing effect of making sure that no matter how much of it you take, you will never be as high as the first high was. And what do? They will sell everything and anything to make sure they chase that high. Being drunk and broke, being high and broke is not the same thing as being drunk and high when you have money. The desperation it draws you into in terms of your health, one, in terms of being able to eat right, being able to live right, being able to drink in an environment that is conducive to your health, those things don't happen. Do you see someone who takes changa wearing a jacket because it is cold? No. Where is he going to afford a jacket? The only thing he needs is to cover his nakedness. Whether his clothes are dirty or clean matters little to him, because whether he showers or not, what matters most, his biggest girlfriend, most important thing is that cup of chana. That's the problem. And when you look at people who are drug dependent in every way, you find that poverty adversely affects these populations. And that's the problem. What is happening now, we are looking at a wasted youth. We're looking at our youth wasting away. Now, let me segue a bit and talk about the most fashionable drug of all, weed. I agree. Based on science, weed is among the safer drugs. In fact, alcohol is significantly more dangerous than weed. I agree. But there's no drug in the world that should be taken every day. My goodness, even coffee has its limits. Monster, let me just take this. This is what I take. Monster. It says I cannot take more than 2 cans in a day. It is a stimulant. Coffee has similar limits. Yet we see our young people smoking weed as though they are steam engines and the coal they are running on is weed. It cannot be. There's something wrong happening in our country. And I'll tell you what it is. What it is this country has a lack of hope. We are suffering from a deficiency of hope. How do I mean? Last year we had an election. That election had the lowest turnout in living memory. Why? Why did it have a low turnout? And I've talked about this before, so let me rehash. In 1992, the people who were leading the changes this country was going through were campus students. They were young people passionate about the future of this country, and they knew they needed a constitutional change, they needed multi-party democracy, they needed freedom of speech, and they fought to repeal Section 2A, fought to have multi-party democracy. But alas, guess what? It didn't happen. It took another 10 years before Daniel Toroitich Arap Moi left office. But what did they see? They saw the fruit of their labor. Today, young people are more concerned about TikTok, Instagram, and OnlyFans than they are about anything else. And these young people are focused on entertainment rather than hope. They are focused on right now. Now, here's the thing about being focused on right now. When you're focused on right now, you'd rather be high, you'd rather be happy than bother your mind with the thoughts of tomorrow. So here's the thing. The government is fighting illicit brews, but it is not fighting the real cause of the problem. The problem is focused solely on a youth that are not deriving any hope in our country anymore. We have not sold a better future to these young people. This is why no matter how many dead bodies come from Saudi Arabia by our young people being mistreated by the Saudis, we still see planefuls of them going to Doha, Qatar, Dubai, and Saudi Arabia. Why? Because they find no hope in Kenya and being African. That's what we need to fix. And when you don't find hope, you know where you find it? You find it in a drink. You find it in a joint. You find it in a line of coke or a shot of heroin. We are not going to fix this country by making bang more expensive. No. If you make bang more expensive, you just make the bang addict a bigger thief. That's all you do. They're not going to stop. The only reason a human being reasonably stops from using any form of drugs is if they have hope. Okay, you think I'm lying? There's a study that was done, and I'll tell you two studies. One study was done on Vietnam vets. Yes, American soldiers who went to fight over in Vietnam in the 60s. Now, many of them became drug dependent in the war. They were shooting up and they were high all the time because of the stresses of war. Over 60% of them, when they came back to the United States, came back and they were drug free. Now, there's another experiment that was interesting. It was to do with mice. So mice were put in a habitat, a cage, and on one side was a drug-filled dispenser, on the other side one filled with water. Once the mice knew that one was filled with drugs, they always drank from the one filled with drugs. So they assumed that addiction is simply that if you can access drugs, you will keep taking it. Then one day, one brilliant scientist had a thought. And they said, what if the problem is that the mice are caged? What if we made a mice utopia, that they had places to play, recreation, ample room, and they were happy in their environment? And then they put the same two dispensers. Guess what? The mice stopped taking the drug water and they began to take normal water. So we need to get to the core of it. Our youth are hopeless. Our youth are in desperate conditions to ensure they can guarantee their futures. Now, how do they guarantee their futures when our jobs are dwindling, our environment, we are not taking care of it, and old people, the people they are supposed to lead, when they go on TV, all they talk is nonsense and politics. Something needs to change. We need to bring back hope to our young people. We need to give them a reason to put down the joint, to stop the lines of coke, to stop being drunk every day. The only drug that is above every other drug is hope. We need to start selling hope. We need to start peddling hope. And how do we do that? Start telling them how you're making their future brighter. So this is my advice to my government. I agree with you. We must fight the vices that bedevil our young people. But let's start here. Can we start selling them hope? Can you start telling them how many jobs you're creating for them are not just jobs to sweep, to build doors. No, no, no. Jobs that matter. Can you start telling them how they will own a Ferrari? Can you start telling them how they will live in a country where there is no litter? Can you start telling them how they'll be able to afford an Xbox the same way they can afford rosy green toilet paper? Yeah, that's the cheapest toilet paper I know, by the way. That's what you need to tell them. Hope. Hope. Because I'll tell you, even the Britons who declared their youth an emergency could only fix the British country when they too realized they needed to sell hope to their young people. And how do you do that? First, let's look at the education system. Our education system is a lie. Oh yes, I said it. It's a lie. First and foremost, they told us, so many vijana tuongeze pia bidii. Baada ya kusoma, tutapata kazi nzuri sana. Kazi nzuri zilichukuliwa. Now, we've got many educated young people who didn't find jobs. So what do we need to change? We need to change from job seekers to job creators. What do I mean? In this country, someone who dropped out before class 8, someone who dropped out at class 8, form 4, degree holder, master's holder, PhD holder, they are all job seekers. Who's supposed to create the jobs? We need to change the minds of our youth from being job seekers to job creators. The opportunities to create jobs are now much more than they are for jobs being created. You doubt me? Let me prove it to you. For the last 20 years, Kenya's economy has grown consistently, other than the year 2007, because we were at war, and 2020, 2021, because of COVID. And each time it has grown, we've not seen a commensurate growth, an equivalent growth of jobs. Why? Because of automation. If you open a sugar factory today that needed 20,000 people in 1970, you probably need 2,000 in 2023. Things have changed. So we need more entrepreneurs. We need to teach a different mantra from the mantra of you will get a job. It needs to change. Number 2, we need to change our education system. We need to move away. And I'm not talking about, listen, CBC, I agree with it. I know. You don't. You're angry because you've got homework. But me, I've been homeschooling my kids, so I'm used to it. But I agree with CBC up to the point where it comes to university. A friend of mine is in university, and he saw a fellow student walk into the exam room and had the whole exam already written down on an exam booklet. So the student sat down and just put the booklet to be collected, spent 2 hours doing nothing. Now, what do we need to change? We are teaching our children that unless you have access to unfair advantage, you have no hope of making it. We are teaching our children that unless you have a corrupt uncle, auntie, sister, you can't make it. We are teaching our children that it is better to know people than to know something. It is better to know someone than to have the know-how. That's the danger. Why would I work hard when all I need to know is that my uncle is the MD director of some entity and they'll give me a job no matter what I know? Martin Luther said, I have a dream. And his dream was to live in a nation where people will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. Now in Kenya, the skin color is not as big a deal. We outnumber the whites and the browns in our country by millions. That's what the issue. But where there is discrimination is this, that those who know people, those who are willing to be corrupt, those who are willing to be low down and dirty, will probably make it more than those of us who want to live in the straight and narrow. That's the issue. The issue is our children have lost hope. When you come from a home where you look at all your uncles and aunties and none of them has EGH, CBO, CSG, what, no title before their name, you have no hope. And woe unto you if you are a young person who wants to live by principle. You believe in hard work and determination. Every time you look around, every billionaire you know is a thief. That feeds hopelessness. Oh, you doubt me? You who are at home, tell me which billionaire you know who is not politically connected and therefore corrupt. Do you know any? That's the problem. That you cannot tell a young person they'll make it without being stupid and corrupt and thieves. And that's why hope is dying. Hope is dying because not everyone is born with that narcissistic, greedy gene. Good people deserve a chance in this country. Good people need space in this country. Good people need to be respected in this country. It needs to get to a point where meritocracy matters. That when you're telling that young person to put his drink down, to put his weed down, and he behaves like a productive citizen, this country needs to produce for him as well. That's what needs to happen. Because when it doesn't, then guess what? They will tell you, cheers, Baba. Cheers. See you next week.